and we are talking about alcohol today. So one of our favorite topics.
Cheers.
Yes. So we have wine out here. We're going to talk about all alcohol. So we'll first start with what is alcohol and how do they make it. So, the nutrition facts of it is not a carb, it's not a protein, and it's not a fat. So it's somewhere in between. It's its own category, and a lot of people don't realize that it has 7 calories per gram, which is kind of like pure fat. So it's pretty close. It's closer to that than it is to carbs or to protein, because fat has 9 calories per gram, and protein and carbs have 4. So it's pretty dense for the volume that it is. So a lot of the calories that are in alcoholic drinks are from the alcohol, not the other things that are in it. Right. So, and how do they make alcohol?
That's a good question, Cassie. So alcohol is ethanol. That's what it's called. It's made when yeast ferments the sugars in grains, fruits, and vegetables. Okay, so it depends on what you're doing. So like grapes are fermented, and that's how we get wine. You're gonna take a grain, a fruit, or veggie, and you're gonna ferment it, and that's gonna create alcohol.
Yes, and the difference between red and white really is how long the grape juice is interacting with the skins of the grapes. So, and rosé, it interacts a little bit, so it's a little pink, and then red wine, it interacts a lot. It stays in there for a long time, and that makes red wine, and that has some other nutrition benefits, which we're going to talk about a little bit later.
Yes.
So that's wine, and then one of the things that is popular now are seltzers and hard seltzers, which we see a lot of, and that actually can be just sugar water that ferments, and so you don't even have to have grapes or other things or wheat or anything like that. You can just use sugar and water, and then the nice thing about that people like is that there's no flavor associated with it. Right. And so it's kind of a blank canvas, and so they can add flavors to it that people like without a lot of calories. Kind of like those sparkling drinks, sparkling waters that don't have a lot of calories. It's kind of the same thing, but it's a fermented sugar water that they add flavor to. So, and what's a serving, Sarah, of alcohol?
I think most people might be surprised by these servings, or at least be like, oh, all right, we'll take that into consideration next time. So 1 serving of beer is going to be 12 ounces. That's typically about a can, so keep that in mind. We do have some visuals here if you're watching the YouTube video. Unfortunately, our podcast listeners can't just visualize it. Wine is going to be about 5 ounces. So we have, again, another visual. That is obviously probably a smaller glass than you might typically use, so it will look different if you use the larger glasses.
I brought my wine glasses from home, and so this is my wine glass compared to the
triple the size.
So I like big wine glasses. I love wine, so I have the different types of glasses for the different types of wines. And the glass can actually bring out the flavor of your wine. So just be mindful that if you're using a big glass, that a serving looks like this. It's not filled up all the way. So just be sure that you're aware of that. I actually use a little smaller glass at home. This is 5 ounces. I know it's 5 ounces. That's a serving of wine, and I use that to pour into my big glass to help me stay on track.
Right. And then the last one for serving size is going to be liquor, so that's smaller at 1.5 ounces. Typically, you're going to see a calorie content between 100 and 150 calories. So there is a difference. There is.
Yes. So, and also there are 5 servings in a bottle of wine. So just throwing that out there too.
Yes.
So if you open a bottle of wine, just know that you should get 5 servings out of that. And so, so that's always sad, but
and that's gonna be. I mean, if you did the math, around 500, 550 calories. Again, it depends on the wine, but just generally speaking, right? So
yes. So okay, so that's a nutrition facts and kind of what alcohol is. Next, we're going to talk about how it's metabolized in your body, and so. There are specific enzymes that we all have, and it's a totally different process than how your body metabolizes other foods. So it has its own enzymes, its own way of breaking it down. And it sounds pretty safe because it's broken down to carbon dioxide and water. So that doesn't sound too bad for your body to get rid of. The problem is that it can only metabolize so much at a time, and usually a drink per hour is about right. So it's not just black and white like that. Also, your body prefers to get rid of that alcohol first and foremost, so it's going to pretty much shut down utilizing fat for fuel and other things until it gets rid of the alcohol. So again, we'll talk a little bit more about weight management and drinking in a little bit, but Alex, you want to talk a little bit more about the metabolism of alcohol?
Yeah. So, like she said, it metabolizes into carbon dioxide and water, but it can also give off a carcinogenic effect, and those carcinogenic things can cause cancer. So that's one thing to be aware of. Also, ethanol itself in large amounts can be carcinogenic, so it's definitely important to moderate that and make sure that you are sticking to moderate drinking, which is 1 drink a day for women and 2 for men, in the correct serving sizes. But again, everybody metabolizes at a different rate, and it depends on how much alcohol you're drinking, so it's very different and individualized for every single person.
Yes, it is. So, and that's based on genetics, and so that first step in the breakdown of alcohol produces that carcinogen. Alcohol itself is a carcinogen, and again, that just means cancer promoting, and so that is something you just need to be aware of. So let's talk a little bit about marketing of alcohol.
Those buzzwords.
Yes, the low carb and the light. So do you want to talk a little bit about the carbs in alcohol and low carb type of alcohol?
So whenever you walk into the big alcohol section, whatever store you walk into, I feel like one of the first things you see too is like light beer or low calorie, which is great because there are people that are concerned about their calories and what they're putting in their body. First, we'll talk about the word light and the word low calorie. So these typically will have less alcohol than regular alcoholic beverages, which also comes along with lower calorie. So that's what you'll get whenever you're looking at light or low calorie beverages. Light beer usually has less carbs, so typically you'll find 10 to 12 grams of carbs in that drink, whereas the light beer will have about 3 to 5, so about half. Craft beers can have upwards of 30 grams, so yes, all of these different kinds are going to have different carbohydrate content, calorie content. So just being aware of that. Alcohol is not, they don't have to put a nutrition label on there, so you won't see it right on the can itself, but you can look that up on your own. I typically find myself doing that, just Googling it real quick if it's a drink I'm not familiar with. And then another thing is dark beer. This doesn't necessarily mean it's going to have more carbs and more calories. You'll typically find around 10 grams of carbs in there. So let's switch to wine. So with wine, that is probably an area where you'll see more added sugar, but not all the time. So most wines don't have added sugar. The carbs are left over from that fermentation with converting grapes into the alcohol itself. Sweeter wines will have more carbs, that's why they have a sweeter taste, and less alcohol because more of the grape juice is not fermented in sweet wines. But of course, if you throw flavors into it, liquor, wine, whatever, it will have added sugar and probably a little bit higher calories. Last thing is hard cider. If you drink hard cider, there is still calories, there is still carbs, even though it markets itself as gluten-free, and there's about 25 grams of carbs in hard cider.
Right. And keeping in mind, a lot of my clients are like, well, I'm doing light beer, but I'm drinking 9 or 10 Mich Ultras. When sometimes it might be more beneficial to do 1 or 2 craft beers compared to 9 or 10 Mich Ultras, because you're still getting all those calories from the alcohol content. So keep that in mind as well.
And those low calorie beers don't have as much alcohol. So if you're really wanting to get the relaxation benefits of alcohol, you might do better getting something that you really enjoy and having one instead of having 4 more of those drinks. So and it does vary. And wine varies as well. Typically sweet wines won't have as much alcohol in them either. So just be aware of that. Ciders, have a decent amount of alcohol, and then seltzers, the hard seltzers have, usually they're 5%, so that would be more like not a light beer, but something that's a little bit heavier than that. And some beer goes up to 9, 10, 12%, and so just be aware of that. And wine, has a pretty high percentage as well, but again, the portion size is only 5 ounces versus 12 ounces of a beer. So. And then usually liquors like bourbon or vodka or gin or any of those don't have any carbs in them. So it's what you add to them that's the problem.
Yes, the Diet Coke and the cranberry juice and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and then it's great because too with these beers, a lot of times, like Sarah mentioned, they'll say low carb or half the carbs of regular beer, but it's only 10 versus 5. So it's really not that significant unless you get to those craft beers typically. So.
Right.
Okay, good stuff.
Yes, it's good.
So now we're going to talk about some of the benefits and risks, but the bottom line that we want everyone to remember is that it's all about your personal risk factors and then how much you're drinking. Because, alcohol is a tonic. It is helpful for a lot of people, which we're going to talk about, but it also can be toxic whenever you do too much, just like a lot of things that we have. So moderation is key for everyone. But there are some pretty impressive benefits. So Alex, you want to talk about some of those?
So first and foremost, that red wine. So a lot of my clients ask me about red wine and its benefits. Cassie's got it right here. Oh, she's getting benefits right now. But she would have to drink quite a bit of that to see the heart healthy benefits, which it has resveratrol in it, which is that antioxidant heart healthy benefit that you're going to get. But again, you'd have to drink a large amount of it. But with that being said, it can decrease your risk of heart disease by almost 25 to even 40%.
And that's impressive.
It is
impressive. Yeah.
It is impressive. And then also increasing your HDL cholesterol, which again is your healthy cholesterol. So that's another benefit of that red wine, which we like.
Yes, which we love red wine. But it's not the red wine itself that's helpful, it's the alcohol.
Right.
And that can come from any source. So you're going to get that same benefit whether you're drinking beer or liquor or wine. And like Alex said, you'd have to drink so much wine that it would be a negative to actually get the amount that they showed in studies was helpful of those compounds in red wine. So just drink what you like and you're not going to drink too much of. That's important. So what's another benefit, Sarah?
Well, other studies, I feel like there's more studies coming out now too, just kind of observing populations that do have this and then their trends. And obviously it's going to change based on your other lifestyle factors too, but things like improving blood sugar control and insulin sensitivity, which can then decrease your risk for type 2 diabetes. It has also been associated with increased life expectancy. Again, serving size is important. Other lifestyle factors is important too. And then it may benefit mental status and, as we all know, decrease stress and be fun.
It is fun. Yes, it is fun. And there's a lot to say for that. Stress is a big negative risk factor, and so alcohol certainly helps with that. And there's a nice little curve with life expectancy, and you see no drinking at all actually has a lower life expectancy than moderate drinking, which remember is 1 drink a day for women and 2 drinks a day for men. So that, and then it starts going down, especially after having 4 drinks a day, where it's definitely a steady decrease in your life expectancy. So good stuff. Yeah. So some risks that are there, which we talked a little bit. Alex mentioned cancer, but that's one of the biggest ones for people that are healthy and not at risk for alcoholism, and who are a little bit older. Teens and younger people have a higher risk of early death from alcohol. But whenever you get a little bit older, maybe you drink a little more moderately. But if you're drinking, a bottle of wine every day or half a bottle for females, you can actually increase your risk for cancer pretty significantly, and that's something that you need to know. So when we say weigh the risks and benefits, I always talk to my clients about look at your family history. If you have heart disease in your family, stroke in your family, if you're at high risk for those and don't have any cancer in your family, then you might be okay with the alcohol, because that's going to decrease your risk factors for things that you're more at risk for. If every female in your family has breast cancer and you're at high risk for that, you want to really think about it before you add in alcohol, or maybe don't do it as often. One of the things that's exciting though with cancer is they've shown that if you eat healthy, it diminishes the negative impact of alcohol. And some studies show it decreases it altogether. So there's no increased risk for breast cancer if you get enough folic acid, for example, and that's 400 micrograms a day. That's found in broccoli, leafy greens, fortified grains, beans, things like that, which those are things that we like our clients to eat all the time. So if you're having wine, be sure you're eating healthy with it, and that can help decrease your risk for cancer. And then also make sure that you realize that any alcohol, even 1 drink a day, can increase your risk for breast cancer and other cancers. So what's another risk factor, Sarah?
Well, one of the things that I think us as dietitians like to analyze too is calories and empty calories from what you're drinking. And so if you are putting alcohol or whatever it is over a healthy diet, those empty calories can lead up. You can eventually develop, if it's long term and you really are neglecting things like micronutrient deficiencies, it can lead to weight gain, stuff like that. So not saying that that's what's going to happen if you include alcohol in your diet, but like Cassie said, in order to kind of just prevent the other things that come along with drinking alcohol, we want you to include fruits and vegetables and not have this as a replacement, as well as other, calories from drinks, sugar from drinks, stuff like that, in place of healthy fruits and vegetables, whole grains, proteins, stuff like that. So.
Yeah, good. Well, what about pregnant women, Alex?
Good question. And a lot of people do ask us about that. And a long time ago, we would say no alcohol. That's what everybody was saying. Now it should be safe to drink moderately whenever you're breastfeeding, not when you're pregnant, when you're breastfeeding. So those that are breastfeeding, if you were to drink close to when you're breastfeeding, it's going to take a lot of time, not a lot of time, but some time to metabolize the alcohol, so your milk should be okay. If you drink and then wait a little bit, that gives your body, again, more time to metabolize. So you'd really have to hit at a very certain point for there to be any chance of it being in your milk. But if you're drinking moderately, then you should be generally safe.
Yeah, so, and during pregnancy, it's a no.
I forgot you guys pregnancy. I went right to breastfeeding. Do not drink while you're pregnant.
So definitely remember that. So it is a carcinogen again, and your fetus would definitely have negative impacts with that.
Right.
So yes, and so another thing, if you drink heavily, and these are all, really if you drink heavily, except for the pregnancy part, but if you drink heavily, again, it's addictive, and if you have a lot of alcoholism or even other things in your family, you might be at a risk for that. And then also liver disease, of course, pancreatitis. So there can be all sorts of negative effects. Nutrient deficiencies, like Sarah mentioned, because you maybe aren't eating foods that you should eat, you're just drinking your meals. So just be aware of those things and know that you want to keep it moderate during the day. So or during the week. So recommendations. I'll let Sarah start with our number one recommendation. We'll go down the list. We have 9 recommendations about alcohol. So
number one, please do not interpret this as us encouraging you to drink. We're just kind of providing you information if you currently drink, where you should be at. But don't think if you abstain from alcohol because of certain reasons, or that's just not something that you enjoy doing, you don't have to by any means to be healthy. So if you get something, please understand that we're not sitting here encouraging you to do that. Just understanding the benefits and the risks associated with it.
Right. And then to add on to that, if you are drinking, be sure that it's moderately. So 1 drink a day for women, and that's that 5 ounces of wine, it's that 12 ounces of beer, it's that shot of liquor, or 2 drinks a day for men. And that can decrease your risk of heart disease, stroke, when you are drinking moderately. But again, remember to look back at your health history, determine if it's something that would be right for you, and also keeping in mind the alcohol content of things. So right now I'm looking at a Bud Light on our table, and that has 4% alcohol, and then we have a little helper which has 7. So again, the calorie content is going to be a lot different based off of that. So 1 drink a day for women and 2 for men.
And also make sure you're eating healthy if you drink. And that's a big one we just talked about, but lots of fruits and veggies, which can minimize those negative effects. So it's just like any other things in the world that we come into contact with that are carcinogens, which are a lot of things. Fruits and veggies can help your body handle those and get rid of those carcinogens a little bit more effectively. So eating those throughout the day is something you definitely want to do.
And to hone in on that just a little bit more, we did mention this, but just to reiterate, if you are a woman and you are concerned about breast cancer and other things that come along with some risk with alcohol, make sure you are getting plenty of folic acid specifically, which can help decrease that risk of breast cancer with alcohol. Food sources, like Cassie said, broccoli, leafy greens, fortified grains, beans, stuff like that. All of those are going to be great sources.
Yes. And looking at our next one, so choose alcohol that's low in calories for the most part. We definitely want you to enjoy what you like, but again, in the right portion. But if you can pick a lower calorie, we would recommend that. But if you do like Chardonnay like myself, I just try to work it in the best I can because it does have calories, so I just got to make sure I factor that into my day.
Yes, because it doesn't magically disappear when you drink it.
Right.
So you have to account for it. But usually, this is kind of the 90-10 or 80-20 kind of goals that you would have. If this is what you want to use some of your fun calories for, it would be a great thing because it can give you some benefit. And again, do not drink excessively. That's a big one. So I get this question a lot. Well, so if I can, as a female, if I can have 7 drinks a week, can I save that for the weekend, and not drink during the week and then have all 7 on Saturday? That's a no. So it does not work that way. Unfortunately, we do know that small, frequent amounts of alcohol are beneficial, but you don't have the same effect if you drink it all at one time. So it needs to be small on a consistent basis to get the benefits from it. And because remember, your body can't clear all that alcohol quickly enough, and so you end up with all of those carcinogens in your body for a longer period of time. Whereas if you had a nice drink with dinner, with a salad and other veggies and a fruit, you wouldn't have a big negative impact from that.
Next, not so much for wine and beer, but if you are choosing to drink liquor with some sort of mixer, that's where you're going to get a lot of added sugar, empty calories, stuff like that. Instead of choosing things like regular soda or orange juice or whatever, go for like a club soda or a water or a carbonated water and then squeeze a fruit into it just to get a little extra hint of flavor. That would be a little bit better.
Yeah, good.
And then please do not drink if you're pregnant. I know there was a slight mix-up on what we were saying earlier. Do not drink if you are pregnant, please. It can cause birth defects. We do not want that. If you are predisposed to alcoholism, I would recommend not drinking. All of us would recommend not drinking. Having liver disease, because that's where it's metabolized, so you just got to be sure to be careful there. And then cancer, if you're prone to cancer as well, maybe think twice before you start drinking.
Yeah, and so lastly, just you really need to look at your own risks and your own benefits, what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy, and make the best decision for you. But the biggest thing is the amount matters, consistency with it matters, and how many calories you're putting in with the alcohol or companies are putting in with alcohol matters. So those are the big things that you need to remember. So we'll finish off with some picks that we have. So this is this is my list of picks that I like, but dry red or dry white wine. So any of those, and Chardonnay is pretty good,
Yeah.
So and then of course your Cabernets and Pinot Noirs and those kinds of things are all good. Things like Rieslings and Moscato, those are pretty high in sugar. So you have to remember that just when you're having it. Champagne is typically pretty low in sugar, so that's another good option. Light beer or beer that you enjoy, again, you have to look at that, but just watch the craft beers. That's the big thing. And then liquor mixed with club soda and a lime. That's a great drink. If you don't like it with just club soda, you could add a splash of cranberry. But instead of having vodka cranberry, which has an extra, 150 to 200 calories of sugar added to it, you can get club soda with a splash, which may be, less than 50 calories added to it. And those little things definitely add up. And then the hard seltzers are usually around 100 to 120 calories. So if you like those, that's another good option too.
Right. And then you would want to do, if you can, do club soda over tonic.
Yes, good point.
Yes, yeah, because tonic does have calories. So if you didn't know that, just be sure if you can to pick soda.
Yeah, and most people will have it. They may not know they have it. So but on a little nozzle, there should be a soda, and just make sure you say club soda so they don't put soda in there.
Yeah.
But usually people do have that. And you can use sparkling water as well as another option, or just plain water. A lot of people like that too, just to mix it up a little. And then you're getting a little hydration.
That's right.
So, okay, well, this was a fun topic. And so we're, cheers to everyone.
Cheers.